Hey, good afternoon to you. 406 now, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up, Hung Cao, U.S. Senate candidate in the Commonwealth of Virginia, will be with us at 4:30. He just did a big debate last night against Senator Tim Kaine. We'll discuss that. And then Congressman Mike Waltz is here at 5 o'clock. I want to talk to him about the Biden-Harris administration's response or lack thereof to the suffering going on in the southeastern United States right now in the wake of Hurricane Helene. So many dead, so many more missing. You can join us, 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. And just a brief reminder for you, I will be out, Corey will be out tomorrow morning in Loudoun County to do some early voting, and that's at the Office of Elections in Leesburg, 8:30 in the morning. That's on Miller Drive in Leesburg, Virginia. Come out and join us. Coffee and donuts will be provided by the Army of Parents. Great group, great people, and can't wait to see you out there. It's going to be excellent. There is more election meddling going on at the hands of the unconstitutionally appointed Jack Smith and company. Judge Chutkan signing off on the release of, well, just basically an attempt to publicly impugn Donald Trump with court filings. And yet it's so unusual that even CNN's Ellie Honig yesterday said, this is unusual.
The way this happened, Jake. So first of all, ordinarily, when it comes time for motions, the defense goes first. The prosecution puts in its indictment. The defense says, here's what we object to in the indictment, and the prosecution responds. Here, Jack Smith said a few weeks ago, Judge Chutkan, we want to go first. And Judge Chutkan actually said, well, that's quite unusual, but she let them go first. And the effect of that now is we essentially have Jack Smith's case, at least on paper, at least the parts that have not been redacted, 30-some days before the election, whereas we might not otherwise have had it.
Whatever happened to the 60-day rule over at the Justice Department? Does Jack Smith even work there? What the heck is going on? Let's bring in Mike Davis now, the founder and president of the Article 3 Project. He joins us on the phone. Hello, Mike.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Okay, so Jack Smith, he basically is now making, as far as I can tell, a public case that Donald Trump's an awful person, shouldn't be president of the United States, and he's using taxpayer resources to do it. What am I missing?
Yeah, and it's a political assassination attempt in election season. We have early voting that's already started. We have the election in about a month. And this, as you said, is an unprecedented procedure that Biden-Kamala special counsel Jack Smith and this D.C. Obama judge have used here to go after Trump. They waited nearly 30 months to bring these unprecedented, I would say bogus charges against Trump down in Mar-a-Lago for presidential records he's allowed to have under the Presidential Records Act, Trump's allowed to have. And then when Jack Smith realized that Trump actually got a fair judge in Judge Eileen Cannon, Jack Smith did this highly unusual second indictment in a second venue against the same defendant. And they got this D.C. Obama judge, Tanya Chutkan, who has made it her mission to railroad Trump during these proceedings. It was so bad that during the presidential immunity ruling back in June, the Chief Justice, John Roberts, not exactly a Trump fan, no Trump signs in his yard, no MAGA hats, the Chief Justice actually reprimanded the lower court judges, including Judge Chutkan, for railroading President Trump in this case.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a big deal when a federal judge declares something, right? That's an important thing. And I'm thinking about Eileen Cannon here because, as you mentioned, she's a fair judge in Florida. She was hearing this case on documents down in Florida, this document dispute between the Biden administration and President Trump. And she concluded that Jack Smith is unconstitutionally in the role. Put differently, Merrick Garland violated the Constitution and the law by appointing Jack Smith to be a special counsel of anything. How does this other Judge Chutkan case continue without that really essential issue being resolved?
Judge Cannon's ruling in Florida is not binding on Judge Chutkan, but it's certainly persuasive. And the fact that Judge Chutkan, who just got reversed by the Supreme Court in June in a monumental presidential immunity decision, you would think that she would take pause before she makes rulings and she does things or she doesn't do things in one of the most consequential cases that she'll ever have that could affect the next election, but she's proven,
Yeah.
Judge Chutkan has proven over and over and over again that she's a partisan. She's a political hack in a robe.
Well, this is why I'm kind of tempted to believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, but that the Supreme Court should be intervening here because I know it was Justice Clarence Thomas who's indicated in his own opinions that he thinks it's very much an open question whether or not Jack Smith is even allowed to do this. Why isn't the Supreme Court intervening here?
That's a good question. So on presidential immunity, when you're dealing with immunity, you can get that issue resolved before the trial, before the appeal. You can get that resolved up front. I don't know if you can get the issue of special counsel jurisdiction resolved up front. But what's going to happen here is Judge Chutkan is going to rule for Jack Smith on this next round of presidential immunity arguments. Jack Smith clearly has it wrong again. Chutkan will go along with it again, mindlessly, dumbly go along with it again. That will go up to the D.C. Circuit again. They'll probably get it wrong again because they're Democrat hacks on the D.C. Circuit. Obama stacked the D.C. Circuit with partisans, and it will get back up to the Supreme Court. So the bottom line is this is not going to get resolved anytime soon, and certainly not before the election.
That's the question. That was what I wanted to ask, because we've got just a little over 30 days until the election. So we get this big dramatic filing that MSNBC is very exercised about right now ahead of the election, but we're not going to see any meaningful progress on the case until after the election. So what is this, if not just election meddling? It strikes me that the only point of this filing was designed to interfere in the election.
It's 100%. It is partisan lawfare and election interference by Biden-Kamala special counsel Jack Smith and D.C. Obama judge Tanya Chutkan. There's no other way you can look at this. They waited 3 years to bring these charges. They couldn't wait until after the election. They couldn't let Trump file a motion to dismiss the superseding indictment and then have the government respond, which is the normal course. They couldn't do that because they had to get this out there in the public domain before the election because their goal is election interference.
I do want to address some of the contents because I think it's important that we talk about this. And I really do think, I look at this, I'm looking at basically that President Trump, just as he did in public, was apparently in private saying over and over again that he was convinced that he had won the 2020 election. And he was telling everybody within earshot, including many government officials, that he wanted them to dig in on these questions. Jack Smith is construing that behavior as some sort of crime. Strikes me that these are exercises of the First Amendment and a legally allowed contestation of an election.
It is not a crime to object to a presidential election. It is allowed by the Electoral Count Act of 1887. Democrats objected to Republican wins in 1969, 2001, 2005, and 2017. We don't see Hillary Clinton and Al Gore and John Kerry in prison, right? They have taken the political process and tried to politicize, weaponize, and criminalize it because they fear American voters on November 5th. And so they are trying to do everything they can to stop Trump. They tried to bankrupt him. They tried to throw him in prison for the rest of his life. They tried to take him off the ballot. And when that didn't work, they underfunded his Secret Service protection and tried to have his head taken off.
It's such a bizarre filing to read because in it includes like some people within Trump's orbit saying, hey, we think this is over, or we don't think you won, or we think the challenges aren't going to work. So what? I don't understand how it's a crime for somebody to give you countervailing advice and you not to believe them.
It's not a crime. None of this is a crime. The only crime that Trump possibly could have committed on January 6th is if they have evidence that he incited the riots. They don't have evidence because it doesn't exist. It's to the contrary. Trump told his supporters to go peacefully to the Capitol. And they look, regardless of what you think about the January 6th protest, they had a First Amendment right to be there. They had a permit from the National Park Service to be there. It is when it got out of control and turned into a riot is where it became criminal, right? And unless you can show that Trump incited that riot on January 6th, he did not commit a crime.
Of course. And you can't demonstrate that he did anything but accept the results of the election as an official matter because he leaves on January 20th. He goes to Florida. He heads away. Joe Biden takes over as president of the United States that day. What is that, if not accepting yet objecting to the way it was conducted?
Yeah, and I don't want to hear the Democrats pretend like they're the party of democracy. Look what they've done. They tried to bankrupt Trump, throw him in prison, take him off the ballot. When that failed, they're trying to destroy the Supreme Court that got in their way. They've intentionally underfunded Trump's Secret Service protection. They almost got him killed. And when that failed, when Biden failed at all that, what did? They gutted Joe Biden in a bloodless coup. They threw out 14 million Democrat primary votes, and they installed Kamala Harris in a backroom deal when she did not win one Democrat primary vote for president in her life.
Yeah, no, it's crystal clear, the so-called threats to democracy and where they're coming from. As President Trump said many times now, he's even taken a bullet for democracy, which is a very unfortunate feature of this election. Mike Davis, thank you as always, sir. Really appreciate your wisdom on this.
Thank you.
Good to talk to you. That's Mike Davis. I played CNN's Ellie Honig earlier saying that this Jack Smith stunt is very unusual, he says. The same was true over on CBS. They have one of their legal analysts, a woman called Rebecca Royf. She said, this is unusual. In fact, it's practically inappropriate.
When there are motions, those motions become public, and those motions contain certain factual allegations. I think what is unusual here is the level of detail. Now, of course, this is an important case. This is a responding to a ruling from the Supreme Court that was fairly vague.
Let me just point out, she's like, well, of course, she's stipulating, well, of course, this is an important case, so maybe it makes things different. I'm sorry, I thought the left was telling us over and over that everyone was equal before the law, that no one is above the law, and of course, by extension, logically, no one should be beneath the law.
And so it's not that the level of detail is inappropriate, but there is a level of detail that one doesn't normally see in motion filings. And so I think that's worth pausing and mentioning that
it's meant to slander him in public. This is the Nancy Pelosi wrap-up smear. They just want to inject this into the bloodstream. The irony, of course, is I think the left, they don't realize that most people have already made up their mind about all of this stupid nonsense. This is why they got all spun up after the debate this week. It was like the final 4 seconds of the debate when Tim Walz is like, do you accept the results of the 2020 election? And J.D. Vance is like, I'm looking ahead. I think we just need to make things better for America. And the left is like, oh, this is crazy. Look what he said. They're cutting advertisements, trying to convince people. This is so stupid. Nobody, what voter is out there who's persuadable on this issue? Everyone has their minds made up about this. And in fact, if anything, Donald Trump's constant being sucked into courtrooms by the left has actually brought more support to his side.
The former president's argument that this was interfering with his constitutional right to a fair trial, it's not a far-fetched argument to make.
She was practically choking as she said this, but she's saying Donald Trump has a point. This is a violation of his rights to a fair trial.
Given how much detail is actually in there.
Given how much detail is in there. And once again, if even if you're following this from a distance, the reality here is there's nothing else in the justice system like this. The timing of all of the cases that the left brought against Trump was when? Right now, in the middle of election season. Right now. And once they launched these cases, they're moving them at the speed of asteroids. They're firing it off as quickly as they can in a way that you don't see with any other legal case at all, especially cases like the documents case that involve how many millions of pages, whatever the numbers were. It was an absurd number of documents that they were trying to go after Trump for in this dispute, meaning you need time as a legal defense to go through them. But the rules are completely changed for Trump. Trump is beneath the law in the eyes of these Democrats who are really screwing up and decreasing confidence in our justice system. Well, let's check in on the phones. We've got Mike calling in from Washington, D.C. Hello, Mike. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
How you doing?
Good, sir.
How you doing? How are you?
I'm doing great, Mike. What's on your mind?
I wanted to mention that Donald Trump can file an application for a criminal complaint in Florida against Judge Chunkin and Jack Smith for harassment and election interference. Okay?
Okay.
There's three ways that you can get charged for a crime. The police can witness it, or someone calls the police and they're in hot pursuit, they arrest you.
Mm-hmm.
They can go to a grand jury, present evidence, and get indicted.
Mm-hmm.
Or an individual can file an application for a criminal complaint. The clerk magistrate serves the people, and they have to show up for a good cause hearing. Donald Trump has good faith now to say he's being harassed by Jack Smith because a federal judge has said he does not have jurisdiction to bring this. There's no guarantee that Donald Trump will win this case, but he certainly will be entitled to a hearing. And a prosecutor and a judge are not exempt from being served. If I were an attorney general in a different state, or if I were Donald Trump, I would file a complaint for harassment against Jack Smith, an election interference against Chunkin and Jack Smith. I would have them served and then have a hearing.
And that could work even if the harassment's being conducted in a different state?
Without a question, because if the person, wherever the victim is, okay, has jurisdiction.
Interesting.
Donald Trump is a citizen, a resident of Florida. They raided his estate in Florida.
Yeah.
Jack Smith showed up and had his hearing in Florida.
Mike, I don't even know. I don't even know if I really even need to ask this, but I assume you are an attorney, right, Mike?
I'm an attorney, and I've seen defend people against these type of things.
Okay, and then is this something that Attorney General Ashley Moody in Florida could get the move on?
He could get the move on, or Donald Trump's private attorneys could do this.
Okay, all right. Well, there you go. My guess is there are people within the sound of your voice right now, Mike, who are a lot closer to this than I am, and hopefully that if that's something that could work, get a move on. We got, 30-something days before the election? At least make Jack Smith's life a little more difficult. You know, right? Turnabout's fair play, 429. Hey, good afternoon to you. 435 now, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we are making sense of the news. Coming up, Congressman Mike Waltz will be with us at 5 o'clock. We will talk to him about the aftermath of Hurricane Helene and the unfortunate failures of the Biden-Harris administration already. And you can talk to us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. A big debate last night, several debates this week. The debate last night at Norfolk State University between incumbent Democrat Senator Tim Kaine and his excellent challenger, that'd be Navy Captain Hung Cao. Hung Cao had a lot of great moments last night. Here is one of them, one of my favorite highlights, as he talks about the American dream, what it means to him, and why people shouldn't be illegally coming into the country.
Don't ask for the American dream if you're not willing to debate American laws and embrace the American culture. When Vietnam fell, we had nowhere to go, and America had brought us in. And my parents waited in line for 7 years. We all did, for 7 years to get our citizenship. I love this country so much that I wrote a blank check up to and including my life to defend it. We need to protect Americans every single day.
Great American immigrant, military veteran, and now U.S. Senate candidate Captain Hung Cao joins us on the phone. Sir, good to have you back with us.
Vince, thank you so much for having me. It was a great night last night.
Yeah, I thought so too. You know, that was that theme of what is happening to our borders. That seemed to weigh heavily in most of your answers. Actually, I felt like you kept bringing that up to the audience last night.
No, absolutely. Look, we have people in the entire East Coast right now that don't have homes. We've got lost over 100 Americans, and there's 200 or so that are missing. We need to medevac everybody out and put them in this 4-star hotels that we're putting illegal aliens. They're in there, eating and getting room service when our people are on the rooftops, suffering and dying.
Yeah, there are estimates upwards of $9,000, $20,000 per illegal, all sorts of money headed towards illegal foreign nationals in our country. But American citizens, we just heard Kamala Harris say yesterday that those affected by the storm, some of them may be eligible at some point in the future for $750 in relief, Hung Cao. Did something seem screwed up there to you?
Absolutely. We spent $500 billion last year on illegal aliens, and now FEMA is saying they don't have enough money to help Americans. That's wrong. Trust me. We can stop all the bleeding right now at the border, and then take that money and invest in Americans.
Last night in the debate, Hung Cao had this to say about Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and Tim Kaine.
Where's the leadership? Joe Biden's on the beach. Kamala Harris is with a bunch of billionaires doing a fundraiser, and Senator Tim Kaine is at a pig roast.
Another good line. I wonder, Hung Cao, what was it like for you to be in this debate against Tim Kaine? I was watching last night and thinking, first of all, Tim Kaine's been in politics, since the Stone Age, and he's up there. He's very political. It seems like boring, polished Democrat talking points. And you look like a guy who's engaging in politics and wants to do something good for the country.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, he was really nice at the beginning. I mean, when we greeted each other, he goes, "Hey, nice meeting you, and congratulations on the grandbaby." And when we were done, he's like, "All right, good job." And he just walked away and went into the spin room to try to do damage control.
Yeah, he did. He went in there and he was trying to, recover from how everything went last night. You did raise one of the critical questions yesterday. You asked if people felt like they were better off than they were last administration.
The economy is hitting us all the same way. Ask yourself this question: are you better off today than you were 4 years ago? The answer across the board is no. The only people better off today than they were 4 years ago are illegal aliens, criminals, and senators like Senator Tim Kaine.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, how does Tim Kaine answer for that? I mean, that seems like the most obvious math that anybody can do as they walk into the ballot box. Is my life improved by having these people in charge? The answer seems to be across the board, no.
You're right. I mean, the same people that got us into this mess are now saying, "Hey, give me until 2030. That's what Tim Kaine wants. Give me until 2030, and I promise I'll fix everything I screwed up. And he didn't like my when I brought up his record, right? He introduced 227 pieces of legislation or co-sponsored it, and only 3 made it through. That's a 99% failure rate. Look, I defuse bombs, and our motto is initial success or total failure. If I had 99% failure rate, I wouldn't be talking to you right now, Vince.
No, you wouldn't. Actually, I want people to hear this moment. It's pretty funny. And just so everyone knows, I fact-checked it this morning. I was like, was Hung Cao right about this? And sure enough, you were right. This is a very accurate number. But Tim Kaine last night was insisting, that's not true. That's not true.
Again, he says what he's going to do. It's going to be like, hey, why haven't you done it yet? Honestly, of the 227 bills that Senator Kaine has proposed, only 3 of them made it through.
That's completely wrong.
That's a 99% failure rate. My profession is disarming bombs.
Check the tape on that. That's completely wrong.
Okay, sir. There's 2 truths in the world. Okay, never walk in a Target store wearing a red shirt, and never go against an Asian when it comes to math. Trust me.
What does that mean, gentlemen? We're going to move on.
Look, he's got a 99% failure rate.
That was a funny moment. And so, once again, I did fact check this morning, Hung Cao, and you're totally right about that. The 227 bills, only 3 have ever become law. One of them was renaming a post office. I mean, this is not a guy with like some big track record of huge legislative accomplishments.
No, you're absolutely right. Look, your audience has a better chance tonight of winning Powerball than for Tim Kaine to write some bill that's going to help them.
Hey, that line last night where you said that there's 2 truths in the world: never walk into a Target wearing a red shirt, never go against an Asian when it comes to math. First of all, that Target thing, I had never heard that before, and I was looking it up today. Apparently, there's entire subreddits dedicated to this. Apparently, it's a bad idea to wear a Target red T-shirt into the store because people start thinking that you work there, and either someone will yell at you to get back to work or customers will ask you for help.
I always tell them aisle 9, sir. It's right down aisle 9.
Aisle 9. See, so helpful, even when he doesn't even work for Target. And that, I want to play for you something. This is so last night I was watching some of the post-debate reaction, and there's a TV channel called Wavy, which is a fun name for a TV channel. But they weren't too enthusiastic about you, I have to admit, Hung Cao. A lot of the post-debate coverage was kind of tilted against you, not surprisingly. But they interviewed a Virginia delegate, Democrat Don Scott, and asked him about that comment that you made about Asians and their ability to do math well. And here's what he had to say. Listen to this.
And he was giving a bit of percentage numbers, and Kaine pushed back and said, that's not correct. You don't have those numbers right. And Cal's response was, there are 2 things you never do. You never wear a red shirt in Target, and you never question an Asian on math. What did you think about that response?
I'm not surprised. That is the type of anti-DEI racism that folks like that in that community are using now. If I were Asian American, I would probably be offended because it says a lot about how he thinks about race, that he pigeonholes Asian kids and Asian people, and I don't want to know what he would have said about black people.
Oh my gosh. All right, so the conclusion from this dude is that you're some sort of insidious racist, Hung Cao, because you cracked a joke about a positive stereotype about people who look like you.
You can't make this stuff up, Vince. I mean, everything triggers them, right? Everything hurts their feelings. It's like, hey, let me show you this teddy bear. You point on this teddy bear where I hurt your feelings, and we'll talk about it. It's just insane.
It is. It's totally insane. But I saw a lot of that last night, though. It was really goofy. There was one other thing I want people to hear. Do we have? Oh, here it is. This is one of my favorite moments. The moderators tried to challenge you on your concern about DEI policies in the military. Now, you're the military veteran on stage. You're the guy who has some sense of what it means to be in the military, and of course, how you think it might be strengthened. So, if anybody on stage is equipped to even discuss this, it's you. So they challenge you about this, and you had, I thought, maybe the answer of the night.
When you're using a drag queen to recruit for the Navy, that's not the people we want. Look, what we need is alpha males and alpha females who are going to rip out their own guts, eat them, and ask for seconds. Those are young men and women that are going to win wars.
Please, audience, please.
And then they got upset. The audience started going wild. They loved your response to that, Hung Cao. My sense is that was an answer that very much resonated with members of the military and veterans.
No, absolutely. Look, do we want diversity? Yes, we want diversity in thought, in backgrounds, and experiences. Equity has no place in the military. Okay, and then finally, inclusion. Look, the military is a very exclusive community. Only 10% of our country qualifies for military service right now. And even in special operations, right, we only take the very top tier. So when I train my warriors for, like, I commanded Naval Diving Salvage Training Center, where we trained 1,400 special operations divers from all services, each year. I tell them, look, the sea is unforgiving, and things like war and hardship, it's going to kill you just the same. That's why we have the same standard. And that's why we train to the same exact standard, because you need to be able to depend on the person next to you. And these people who've never worn the cloth of our nation will never understand that.
Also, there's something kind of dangerous, isn't there, about going into the military and then spending the whole time being obsessed with yourself rather than the mission and the people that you're serving alongside?
No, you're absolutely right. Like, the first thing you do at boot camp or the Naval Academy, they shave your head, they give you a number, and that's who you are, because we're all the same. We're all warriors, and that's what we're expected to do is to fall in line, not be different, not be special. I don't need to get all the attention. Just be yourself and be part of the team.
Hung Cao, what kind of reaction have you gotten since that debate last night? Are you seeing any donations, reactions, and support?
Yes, I mean, a lot of support, a lot of donations, and then, of course, the left is hitting me on the fact that, oh my gosh, he's invoking cannibalism for recruitment or something crazy.
The line about ripping out your own guts, eating them, and asking for seconds. To me, that's like, you're a wild man. You're exactly the kind of person I want holding a gun on behalf of this nation. But to them, it's that you're advocating cannibalism. That's how they took it?
That's exactly it. Look, you can't make this stuff up. These people are crazy.
Oh, that's the best. Hey, what does the rest of this campaign look like? We have just over 30 days. I know you'll be doing, I believe, you may already be doing it, but are you traveling tomorrow to other regions of Virginia to see some of this storm damage? Is that what's happening?
Yes, we are. And then right now I'm meeting J.D. Vance. I'm in Virginia Beach still, so we're going to meet J.D. Vance. Then we have a breakfast with some of the locals here, and then we're heading out there. And then, and then I'm barnstorming Virginia with the governor on Saturday.
Excellent. And I know J.D. Vance was in Damascus today, visiting and meeting with Governor Youngkin, having some conversations. What will be, if you can share with us, kind of the goal of your conversation and meeting with the vice presidential candidate today?
Well, we're just, again, what's the strategy for winning Virginia? We have, we already have early voting, and the numbers are looking very good. I mean, I don't want to give it away because then the Democrats will start pouring more money in here. But the early voting numbers look very good for all of us. And obviously, I'm worried about people in the Southwest. I mean, that's our own, Virginians, and we need to take care of them first. And so we want to be able to get help to them when we need to. It's not look. I don't want to advertise this because I'm not out there for a campaign thing. It's just going to be we slip in, slip out. No one sees us, but that's what we're going to do.
Well, I mean, I will say, far too often in politics, people say something. Oh, he's just doing it for politics. Well, the whole way we judge people is whether or not they share our values and they advance the cause of our country, or in your case, the state as well. Seeing you out there is not inherently a bad thing, a pejorative thing that people, if there's a camera that captures it, it's a good thing. It reflects well on you, and voters should know that you care about the right things instead of whatever Tim Kaine is up to.
I know it's just weird because I'm always used to being the one that runs into an emergency, right? As a Navy diver, recovering things underwater, as an EOD tech, diffusing bombs. We go in there, we do our job, and we leave, and there's no fanfare or anything else. We just serve. So it's just, for me, it's just weird. This whole politics thing is very odd. It's not what I wanted to do, but it's what our country needs for us to do.
Hey, can I? Let me ask you one other question about your bio, Hung Cao. I've known you for some time. I've talked with you a bunch, but I didn't realize this detail. I heard Chris Plant talking about it this morning. Is it true that you were a part of the Navy diving crew that recovered JFK Jr.'s body?
Yes, I actually recovered his plane. I was the one that went down, and I was the operations officer, so I planned the entire search. And by the time we found the plane, everybody was already dirty. We're diving, so it's you can only dive once every 24 hours when you're doing surface decompression. So they came up to me like, "Hey, sir, you got to dive." I'm like, "Wait, there's got to be another diver." They're like, "No, sir, everybody's dirty, and you have to go down." And I hadn't slept in 3 days, and we needed the plane up because Ted Kennedy was going to come and recover the bodies. And so I went down, got it, and got the plane back up.
What an amazing story. What an amazing story. Your whole life is an amazing story. Hung Cao, thank you so much. Congratulations again on that excellent debate last night. Best of luck moving forward, and hope to see you on the campaign trail, sir.
Yes, and tomorrow you're going to have great time in Loudoun County. My wife will be out there in my stead, so have fun out there in Loudoun County.
I can't wait to see her. We'll be there 8:30 in the morning. That's the Office of Elections in Leesburg. Coffee and donuts to be provided by Army of Parents. It's going to be a great one. Hung Cao, thank you, sir. Yeah, the New York Post has been calling Doug Emhoff the worst gentleman, which is good. It's good. Normally, there are very few times where I'm like, man, I did better than the New York Post. I like Thug Emhoff. I like that a lot better. I like that was. You're welcome, America. This is the story of Kamala Harris's husband, who apparently, according to Jane, that's the pseudonym for the New York attorney, who says that she was slapped around by Doug Emhoff back in 2012 while they were waiting for the valet. He was slapping her around for flirting with another man. That's the story out of the Daily Mail. The New York Post covered that, of course. Now, Semafor, an outlet in D.C., is, I think, trying to downplay it pretty dramatically. Don't you? Listen to this headline. Second gentleman becomes a target. So none of the corporate media are covering this, but Semafor says second gentleman becomes a target. Oh, he's the victim here. Finally buried in this piece, which is already buried way down their newsletter, they say towards the end, in a statement to Semafor, a spokesperson for Emhoff said, quote, "This report is untrue, and that any suggestion that he would or has ever hit a woman is false." So they finally cough up a quote. Apparently they did it in exchange for a headline that downplays the entire thing. Makes it seem like, okay, there's nothing to see here. Go away. And so we have the once again, yet another case, the left guilty of hurting women, accused of hurting women. But we can't believe all women here. Believe all women unless you're Jane and you were slapped up by Doug Emhoff, smacked so hard that she spun around. That's the reporting from the Daily Mail. Semafor saying, oh, they're picking on old Doug, old Thug Emhoff, 458.